Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're sharing a story that really went viral,
Yeah.
And it left a lot of people wondering what was actually fact and what was, pure fiction. It's this mysterious phenomenon from the Philippines that sparked, honestly, widespread fear, especially online.
Yeah, and our mission today really is to try and unravel the threads of this whole narrative. We want to separate the verifiable incidents, the things we know happened, from the folklore, and frankly, the online hysteria, just to understand the full picture of what people were actually experiencing and, importantly, what they were believing.
Okay, so what exactly are we talking about here? Let's try and unpack this unsettling viral mystery piece by piece. Right, so this whole situation seems to have just exploded around, mid-April of a recent year. That's when reports started kind of trickling in, particularly from the southern region of Mindanao, hinting at some kind of shadowy group causing havoc. And what's striking right away is just how quickly these whispers amplified into this huge online thing.
Exactly. It moved beyond just, emails almost instantly. Mm-hmm. Around the same time, you saw terms like Mindanao cult, or even just Mindanao starting to trend on Philippine Twitter, and that immediately drew even more widespread attention, just amplifying those early kind of unnerving whispers into a full-blown national conversation.
And the claims themselves, when you hear them, they sound like something straight out of a chilling urban legend or even a horror movie. What were the core allegations, the things that had everyone so unnerved?
Well, concerned citizens online, people on Twitter mostly, reported a very consistent modus operandi, basically how they operated. Members of this group would reportedly go around knocking on people's doors at night. And the most frightening part, the really consistent claim, was that whoever answered these knocks, they'd face a pretty dire consequence.
Okay, that's terrifying just on its own. The idea of strangers at your door late at night with bad intentions. But then, as the story spread, the claims, they kind of escalated, didn't they, into something far more fantastical. Locals started suggesting these individuals actually possessed supernatural abilities.
Yeah, indeed. There were claims of shape-shifting, members supposedly transforming into various animals, like cats or dogs, maybe to blend in or get away. And even more chilling were these stories of them taking the form of a loved one, someone you know, someone you trust, to try and gain entry into homes. Some reports even went as far as claiming outright teleportation, like individuals seemingly just vanishing into thin air.
Teleportation. Okay, that really stretches belief. How did the sources or even the locals themselves kind of reconcile these really wild claims with, everyday reality? Was there anything concrete that made people think, okay, maybe this isn't just a rumor?
Well, this is where a truly tragic real-world incident, unfortunately, seemed to anchor these fears for a lot of people. On April 31st of that year, 2 residents were tragically killed in their own home. And the person responsible wasn't caught or even identified at the time. So this event, it undoubtedly fueled those local anxieties. It lent this horrifying sense of legitimacy, you could say, to the rumors flying around.
Right, so this terrible incident happens, a real tragedy. Then about a week later, authorities, who were already kind of on high alert because of the rumors, they made some arrests.
That's right. 2 men were found out past curfew, near the crime scene actually. They were apprehended and found to be carrying illegal weapons, which, definitely gave the impression of official action being taken against this perceived threat.
But the really odd part, the part that seemed to solidify things for many, came when local authorities released photos. Photos of items supposedly found with these 2 guys. And to many frightened residents, these items, which had this, bizarre symbolism on them, served as concrete proof that the cult was real and that these arrests were directly linked. It gave a visual, something tangible to all the stories.
Mm-hmm. And as for the men themselves, they claim they belong to something called the Philippine Brotherhood Society. But, a quick search online for that name, it doesn't really yield any clear results, which leaves the formal or even the actual name of this group, assuming it formally exists, completely unclear. And that just adds another layer of mystery, right? Further blurring the lines between fact and, speculation.
Okay, so we've got these shocking claims swirling around this awful real-world incident, and then these arrests with this weird evidence. But this immediately brings up a really important question. With so much of this blowing up online, how reliable is any of this information, really?
Yeah, the situation absolutely exploded on social media. It led to this flood of videos, images, all supposedly linked to these sightings. We're talking really shaky cell phone videos, a guy on a rooftop, maybe trying to escape a panicked crowd after being caught somewhere, or other footage, maybe CCTV, of someone seemingly trying to force their way into a home. It was just this digital wildfire of content, hard to ignore.
Right. And then there's that particularly bizarre CCTV footage, the one of a man seemingly just vanishing into thin air right on camera, which, I mean, predictably just further fueled those teleportation claims. For people already convinced there was something supernatural going on in this video, it looked like definitive proof. But with these wild rumors flying left and right and just so much content being shared so quickly, the challenge for you, the listener, and for us is, how do you even begin to verify any of this online stuff? How do you separate what might be genuine from what's manipulated or maybe just completely misidentified footage from somewhere else?
It's incredibly difficult. I mean, first, figuring out if what you're even looking at is from the same area, let alone verifying its authenticity or the original context.
Yeah.
It's tough. When rumors are flying around like that, anything posted online, you really need to look at it very, very closely, critically, before drawing any solid conclusions. The sheer volume alone makes it an immense challenge.
And beyond the visual evidence, which, as you said, was often murky or hard to verify, there were also these conflicting ideas. Ideas about what this cult, if it existed, actually believed. Some people whispered about devil worship, painting this picture of pure evil, while others claimed they incorporated elements of, like, native religions using amulets and other ritual items. But at this point, it was all just pure hearsay, wasn't it? Just adding to the confusion and the fear.
Absolutely. And the hysteria, it mounted to the point where mainstream media outlets, even the police, got actively involved. They were trying to track down and apprehend this group, if they did indeed exist, as described. There were even these escalating rumors that the group wasn't just in Mindanao anymore. They were moving north all the way to Luzon, which of course created panic across a much wider region of the country.
So where does this leave us? What does it all mean when we try to connect the dots? We actually reached out to several Mindanao locals for their perspective, and what came back was honestly a fascinating blend of skepticism, but also this crucial cultural context that really sheds a completely different light on the whole situation.
Yeah, one local, a guy named Ian Santos, he told us he'd heard of the group before, but he referred to them more like a fraternity, not really a cult. He attributed a lot of the fear to misunderstandings, maybe some attempted robberies that got twisted in the telling, and just general paranoia fueled by these widespread rumors. And another local we spoke with, who preferred to remain anonymous, basically agreed. He said that while he believed cults did exist in the area, this specific narrative seemed, greatly exaggerated, blown out of proportion.
And this is where that cultural lens becomes incredibly important, maybe even essential to understanding it. Another resident, Ferrari Romano, pointed out something interesting. He said the guy seen climbing on a roof, maybe he was just having some kind of episode, mental health or substance related, but then he added that others observed the man was acting like something called an aswang.
Right, the aswang. For anyone unfamiliar, an aswang is a really prominent type of shape-shifting, sort of vampiric creature in Philippine folklore. These creatures, they're often associated with the night, and they have these very specific, often chilling behaviors attributed to them. And what's truly striking here when you look closer is how many of the alleged cult actions, the specific things people were reporting, perfectly mirror the classic attributes of these traditional folklore creatures. It's almost a perfect fit.
Okay, so what are some of those specific characteristics? What are the parallels here that would make people jump to that conclusion, connecting these events to the aswang?
Well, think about it. The cult is said to appear at night, right? Just like the aswang. They reportedly knock on your door. And crucially, they might even impersonate someone you know to try and gain entry. That's a classic aswang trick, used to deceive people and get into homes. And then, if you try to chase them, the stories say they might suddenly switch forms, maybe into an animal, like a cat or a dog, to evade capture. These are all really classic characteristics of aswang, and you find similar vampiric or shape-shifting creatures in Filipino folklore too. And honestly, this isn't totally unique to the Philippines either. You can find similar tropes, shape-shifting, nocturnal predators, often deceptive in mythologies all around the world, though the specifics, of course, always differ.
And there's also that cultural practice you mentioned in the Philippines of saying tao po when you knock on someone's door, which literally translates to people or human. It sounds like just a simple, polite phrase, but it clearly has a much deeper meaning in this specific context, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It absolutely does. While the explanations for why people say Taupo can vary a bit by region, a very common and deeply held belief is that it's said precisely to prevent spirits or supernatural creatures from entering your home. It's kind of like announcing your human presence, and by implication, warding off anything non-human. So you can imagine a knock without that announcement, especially late at night. That would certainly draw immediate suspicion. It would raise alarm bells, even if you weren't particularly superstitious yourself. These kinds of deep-seated cultural beliefs can very easily inform and definitely intensify anxieties around strange or unsettling occurrences. It leads people to interpret things through the lens of their folklore.
So, okay, if we try to connect all this to the bigger picture, then, it really seems like the case of this Mindanao cult, quote-unquote, might be this complex cocktail, a mix of genuine tragedy, verifiable arrests, but also deeply ingrained cultural myth. It's not just one isolated thing happening.
That really seems to be the core insight here. It is an undeniable, tragic truth that 2 local residents lost their lives, and the person responsible is, as far as we know, still at large. That's fact. It is also true that 2 men were arrested. They were carrying illegal weapons, and these cloths with bizarre symbolism near the crime scene. That also happened. And finally, yes, whispers about a cult, whether you call it a religious sect or a fraternity, have actually plagued the area for years, predating this specific viral incident. So those are the verifiable facts, right? The hard truth that probably sparked the initial fear.
But then, when you combine these genuinely unsettling truths with the incredible speed and reach of the internet, where rumors can spread globally in basically an instant school, and then you layer on top of that these powerful, culturally significant folklore stories like the Aswang, well, it creates an incredibly potent and frankly terrifying mix. It becomes this sort of self-reinforcing cycle of fear and belief, making it really difficult to discern what's actually real.
And this raises a really important question, I think, for all of us living in this hyper-connected world. How do genuine fears, tragic local incidents, and these deeply rooted legends intertwine and amplify each other to create such widespread, terrifying narratives in the digital age? It's a powerful reminder, isn't it, of how quickly rumors can spread and evolve, especially when they tap into existing anxieties and resonate with established cultural beliefs. It also just highlights the constant challenge we face in distinguishing what's real from what's perceived through the lens of fear or tradition or both.
So, reflecting on this deep dive into the Mindanao cult phenomenon, what really stands out to you? It feels like such a vivid example of how true events, these long-standing cultural traditions, and the rapid, often completely uncontrolled spread of information online can combine. They create this phenomenon that's just incredibly hard to untangle.
Yeah, I agree. And this isn't just about one specific incident in the Philippines, right? It's really about how we as humans process fear, how old stories get retold and sort of reimagined in new ways for new contexts. And it highlights the profound challenges we all face in distinguishing verifiable fact from, heightened perception in our increasingly connected world.
It definitely leaves us with a provocative thought to maybe chew on. In an age of instant information, endless content streams, are we actually becoming more susceptible to modern myths and viral hoaxes? Or are these just ancient primal fears simply being repackaged and massively amplified for a new era? Something to ponder.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
We really hope you gained some surprising facts and maybe a clearer understanding of this fascinating and admittedly unsettling viral mystery.